Great.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode with Reinforce the Horse. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. Thank
doing
you. Thank you for asking. How are you?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for those of you watching on YouTube, you could probably see Miss Willow in the background. Alyssa and I are kind of sitting on the ground. We do have our helmets on, just in case. Because Cody's nearby as well, and they're both at liberty.
Hi Willow.
Just hanging out.
Say hi to the world, Willow.
Hi Willow.
She's just checking out the yoga mats. But man, like they're just.
All right, so what are we talking about today? Communication, not control.
Communication, not control.
So recently, within the past few months, every time I go to put on the halter, which really has not been a lot recently. In fact, the past couple weeks, I haven't used the halter at all.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I think halters are bad. I just, on the idea of communication, not control, every time I went to put on the halter, I would tell Cody communication, not control. Because I know that I can't control him through the halter.
Yeah, well, we can't control them through anything.
Yeah, and so anytime Cody wants to do, or any of the horses want to do whatever they want, I mean, just by mere power, they can.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of how well trained they are and stuff like that. And I guess training, and no matter what type of training, ultimately shoots to compensate for that.
They're very strong.
That power imbalance.
We are not eating snacks right now. I'm about to go stick this back in the shed. No, thank you.
So clearly we have a decent amount of communication with our horses.
They know they're very loved. But anyways, yeah, back on the communication, not control. They're very strong.
Physically.
I mean, some of the horses, they weigh 1,000-pound or more.
Yeah. I mean, I would say average horse probably, the average weight probably is about 1,000 pounds. Yeah.
I mean, our horses are a little under, but they're like 600, 700 pounds. They're
easy. Yeah.
They're very strong. They're powerful. And they're smart too. Like, they know how to control their body. So one may think that they could control the horses, and I think a lot of it just comes down to, if you're using, I guess, natural horsemanship training methods, more so shutting them down to, quote, control them. With using our clicking and treating methods, it's actually communicating with them to the point where they're comfortable. Versus trying to, bit them up and control their movement,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, and, we've done a lot of talking of the different training methods, and I think it was on Warwick Schiller's Journey On podcast I was listening to recently. I think it was on that, he made mention of, like, there being the possibility of, even with positive reinforcement, leading the horse into shutdown mode.
Yeah, and Maddie's mentioned that before.
Yeah. Or maybe it was Maddie on the Journey On podcast that was talking about that. I can't remember. Really good podcast, by the way. Warwick Schiller's Journey On, as it's called. And, it's real similar to, like, our vision for this channel. Of course, they started, 66 episodes ago or something like that. And just celebrated their 1 million downloads, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It would be cool to get to that point at some time in the near future.
One day.
So when it comes to communication, we do feel like we have a pretty decent layer of communication with our horses. Now, those of you watching right now, you might think, well, how well are you communicating right now? Because your horse is really trying to get your attention, and honestly, that's all he's doing. He's not really looking for snacks or treats. I mean, they do like the grass in our grassland here, so he could go and eat if he's really hungry. He's not hungry at all, and in fact, he's probably full. But what he's doing right now, he's just curious. He is kind of, hey, if you give me a treat, that would be cool.
Yeah.
But he's just wanting my attention. I do notice when I'm trying to communicate with him, if I turn my attention to something or someone else, uh, he very quickly turns his attention off of me.
Yeah.
And you've noticed that, right?
Oh,
When
yeah.
working with horses.
Willow, she does not like it when I'm, on my phone or whatever, especially when she knows my attention's supposed to be on her. Like if we're walking.
Right.
I mean, she's pinned her ears at me and she hasn't nipped, but she's like done this turn her head toward me really fast with her ears pinned to get my attention. And interestingly enough, as soon as my phone goes off and away, her ears go bink, and she's like, "Okay, let's walk."
Yeah.
And it's like really cool. Like it's like, "Hey, Dad, Mom, Mama, Mom,
Yeah.
Mom."
And then
Put your attention on me.
yeah.
And it's quite literally like my little sister. Just,
Right.
hey, I need your attention. And Cody here is just being super chill for those of you watching. He's just like loving being loved.
Yeah, and I'm petting him, and he's like, "Hey, but I know you have treats down there." And I'm like, no, just ask him gently.
He's licking his lips. I mean, he's like super chill.
His eyes are really soft. And so, in the essence of communication and not control, so we've established that physically we can't control these creatures. Now, different methods of getting them to respond to us the way we want them to, we could say exerts a certain amount of control on them, be it different tack that's used, like, so, a larger shank bit is going to apply more pressure to ultimately control the horse's movement one way or the other. Our leg pressure when we're riding, our rein pressure, which relates to the bit, but when it comes down to communicating with them, I find that the less amount of pressure we use in training and the more focus that we have on just actual communication, the less we need to control them or feel like we need to.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you bring up there. When we have the ability to clearly communicate with them and they know how to clearly communicate with us, it's like you've opened up the door to a whole different realm. They're not only very responsive to us, but we're really responsive to them and their needs and wants. And it's almost like you could clearly hear them say, "I'm thirsty," while you're walking on the track.
Oh, yeah.
Or or "Look, there's a car over there. I'm kind of nervous about it." And from there, with different techniques that we've learned, we can help them, bring their fear down. And, that's just a car. It's going by. It's not a threat.
Right.
And that's kind of cool too. With all that clear.
I like your approach in that way when they communicate some sort of fear or anxiety with you, and you acknowledge that and become present with that, and instead of saying like, "Oh, it's just the car," or "It's just this," you're like, "What are you scared at?
Mm-hmm.
What do you see?" And do they understand that language and whatever? I don't think so. But what I think that they do understand 100% crystal clear is the energy that we produce based on the language that we choose.
Yeah, so they can like feel, and I've heard multiple times, a horse can feel the energy even from our eyes. So that's one reason I believe that when you ask him to pick up his hoof, you can simply stand by his face, look at the hoof, and think that you want him to pick it up, and he'll like feel your eye energy. And so with you, turning your energy and your attention toward what he sees, he may, feel more secure because you're helping him feel more comfortable with that feeling.
I'm gonna back him up a minute because he's getting a little bit in my space. Thank you, sir. So just right there, for those of you listening, Cody's just kind of standing over us. Arguably, we're not in the safest position, but he's really calm. But he's kind of like wanting to ask more than I want him to for snacks. And so I'm just asking him to move out of the frame a little bit, and then I'll treat him over there. So I do ask with a little bit of pressure on his face, but I really don't have to. I could just, stand over here, and he'll come right to me, and then I treat him for that. Good.
I never thought our horses would be this like wanting to be with us. Willow is opted out. She's like, nope. But that's, probably for the better.
She's in our vicinity, and he is just really wanting to be treated.
Yeah.
But there's a level of that, and there's also a level of, when I look at his eyes and his posture, he's really content and relaxed. And I've noticed one thing is that he will continue to try to get my attention like he is right now. And I don't think that that's necessarily like a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't feel like I have to like, make him run or move his feet. That's an option. I could. But really what I'm doing right now is just, communicating with him, acknowledging the fact that he is wanting my attention, and shifting my attention his direction, but also asking him at the same time to be calm and relax a little bit outside of my space so that I feel more comfortable.
And this is one way,
And in that way, to me, that's communication, not control. I'm not, where conversely, I could, pop my hands, clap real loud, yell at him, something like that, or really just kind of push him, or have a carrot stick or any sort of stick and just, start smacking him and ask him to go that way, and he would.
Yeah.
But I feel personally that that's exhibiting more control effort on my part than it is really trying to communicate with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is one way, I found that the discipline factor, like, I don't want you here, and, it's like a gentler way of asking them, of telling them no. Versus, for me, it's almost like, he doesn't know that he's not supposed to be in the space. It's like teaching a little kid, not to color on the walls. Like the first time they do it, they really don't understand. So, maybe the parent will go over and be like, "Hey, please don't color on the walls."
Right, and it takes a little bit of time and effort, but
rewarding when they do.
Using that analogy, the parent could just walk up with a belt and smack the kid on the rear.
Yep, and take the pin away.
Yeah, and then I bet that kid at least thinks again before colors on the walls, but that's not communication.
Yeah.
And that's not that's not acknowledging perhaps why the child's coloring on the walls in the first place, which, as a parent, I could likely say there was a breakdown in communication in the first place, which that happens. So let's acknowledge it and let's try to communicate in a way that makes more sense for everybody involved instead of exerting our control factor that we have.
Yeah.
Because clearly, from horse to human, we have strengths in a lot of ways that they have weaknesses. And geez, they have so many strengths where we have so many weaknesses. And so that alone says that there could be automatically, just from the very beginning, a huge communication gap.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm finding out is the more that I focus on bridging that communication gap calmly and with precision, the less control is required, which I guess control is never required. But we think it is, as humans. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like communication is a very important part of life, no matter who we're communicating with, or who we're talking to, or, I mean, whether it be a person, a friend, a horse, a dog, cat. I mean, I never, I'm not one to want to immediately jump to force. I mean, force hurts. It can be painful, and, I mean, mentally, physically, emotionally, and it just, if there's a better way, I mean, I certainly feel like we should use that better way.
Sure.
And, communicate. It may take more time, but in the end, we're all happier. Hopefully we learn something just through being able to clearly communicate our wants and needs with the other party.
Well, and the point that you made about it taking more time, I would say both in parenting, so human parenting or child rearing as we call it, and in the world of training and communicating with horses, I would say that it doesn't take more time using like the more communicative methods and the softer methods, if you will, than exerting control or a facade of control. And in fact, it's been mentioned, like, what's going on with the brain chemistry and such. One could say, especially when it comes to working with horses, when we get them in this state to where their eyes are like this and calm and relaxed, like cognitively, he's in the best possible state of learning right now. And so he will actually, his brain is actually such to absorb and retain that information so much better in this state than if I were to take him in the round pen and just move his feet and gain some semblance of control over him. Which I find all that fascinating. So, and it takes time and effort. Even as we sit here right now, he's slowly catching on to the idea of not being so in my space.
Yeah.
And
you're slowly just asking him more and more.
Yeah, and I'm not. So the treating, is like a third of a pellet each time. So it's not even like it's not a handful. It's not even a full pellet. And so as he advances into my space, and he's calm about it, but instead of getting all bent out of shape and all that, I'm just asking him to move back by just stretching my arm out. And he knows that to be the place. And eventually, if I did this for probably a few days, he wouldn't even approach anymore sitting down. This is just a new sort of situation and environment for him. So he's just super curious about it, and
Yeah.
he's super content. They like when we're at this level. I think they
they
feel
like
naturally more
really
content
like
that way.
when we're sitting down. It's one thing I've seen. I mean, I think the coolest example I'd seen, our farrier came out, and Willow was like really, she was really nervous about his presence. I mean, you know, she doesn't trust people, and he came out, and just about the first thing he did when he walked in the pen was kneel down, just right in front of her.
Yeah, that
and
was really cool.
her head, I mean, like, she's taller than he is, and he had asked me, do you know why I'm doing this? And I said, no, I've never seen anybody do that with a horse before. I thought that was dangerous, especially with the horse being nervous. And he says because she's not vulnerable anymore. Like, he's vulnerable at that point.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to just see that. And Willow didn't completely submit, if you will, but she showed so many signs of calm with him at this level.
Yeah.
Now, in the end, I mean, she wasn't comfortable with him, trimming her hooves, but we're slowly, all together, we're slowly working to get her more comfortable with, someone other than me and my dad down there picking and messing with her hooves. But I mean, that was just awesome.
And the cool thing about that you bring that session up was that he was so willing to go at her pace.
Yeah.
And not force her, not try to control her, even though, clearly he has the experience. Like, if he needed to tie her up or something like that, or wanted to, he could do that. But he was just like, that's not necessary, and definitely just wanted to go at her pace. And if we got the hooves trimmed that day, great. If not, then,
Yeah.
and he did assess them, make sure that, it wasn't like an emergency,
Yeah, but that was just really cool. It was like one of the coolest professional experiences I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I mean, that just kind of showed me even more that Willow really liked when he was sitting down, and they seem a lot calmer when we're at this level.
Right.
Which is kind of cool because, like, they're huge. Like, they could step on us and, walk all over us. They could stick their noses in our
I
face.
think that has to do kind of with the thinking brain. So, like, I think naturally, and I don't have any, like, thing to back this up, but I think naturally if we sit down, our brain activity, I would guess, goes down at least a little bit in some areas. That would just be my guess. And so I feel like they sense that. And so they're calmer as a result.
They like it. Cody's just being...
I still don't know why he's hanging around as long as he is right now. He's not really getting the hint that I'm asking him to not be hovering over my head.
He's really curious about the other animals.
Yeah, and we have the cat over here too. So, and the treat bag spilled.
Oh gosh.
And so today we're kind of just roundabout and talking about communication, not control. Did you have anything else to add?
No, not
Alyssa?
that I can think of.
Yeah, I think just wanted to give you an overview as to like what the hashtag means and represents, and maybe we'll talk about it in more detail in future episodes.
Yeah, thanks so much everyone for watching. I hope that you all are doing well, and we'll see you next week with another episode. Seriously, Code? And,
Aren't we breaking like a lot of...
Seriously? He's trying to get reinforced.
Excuse me.
So how are we ever going to get anything done? She wants to throw it on her back again.
Cody, come on, we're gonna put you guys away. You guys are like two little kids.
Say no, thank you.
Cody, stop. Just try to knock it over again. Why are you so curious? You're supposed to be scared of this stuff. Don't lick your lips. I don't even know what you're trying to do right now. It's like, I want to be on TV.
Behind the scenes.
Okay, excuse me, but I've got work to do. It's gonna be one heck of a blooper reel.